trustees for the Village of Woodridge on this Thursday, March 17th, 2022. We welcome everyone. We call the meeting to order at 7 p.m. and ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Abbott.
Present.
Trustee Krusek.
Present.
Trustee Page.
Present.
Trustee Martinez.
Present.
Trustee Blair.
Present.
Trustee Kagan.
Present.
Mayor Cunningham.
Present. Quorum is
I'm
established.
sorry,
That's
quorum
okay.
established.
No problem. Thank you, clerk. If you would please join us in a moment of silence, which is we are going to dedicate our meeting to the memories of Mrs. Karen Ketterer and Mr. Jamie Lowe, both Woodridge neighbors dedicated to our community. We send our sincere condolences to the Ketterer and Lowe families, their friends, and their neighbors. Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone. Now, if you would like to please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, led this evening by Woodridge Police Chief Brian Cunningham and our newest colleague at the village and the Police Department, Felicia.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, we do have an item under special recognition, and it is our honor to ask our chief to come up and introduce Felicia Acosta.
Thank you, Mayor and Board. I'm here to introduce our new social worker. She's a part-time social worker. If you remember, about a year ago, we started the search for a social worker, and it's something I wanted to do since I got here. I thought we had a strong need for a social worker. We looked everywhere for a social worker that we could have in-house. We couldn't find anybody qualified, and I'm so glad it happened that way because I think we got the perfect fit with Felicia. She's on a part-time basis with us. She works 3 days a week, and she comes from NETFIS, which is the Northeast DuPage Family and Youth Services Incorporated. They generally work up north in DuPage County, and this is the first time they've had a department that's actually south. So a little bit about Felicia. She started out doing a lot of juvenile advocacy work at King County Juvenile Center. She was a mentor and tutor for the juveniles at risk there. At the same time, she was a dispatcher in Lyons PD. And it was funny because we did an event last week where Curtis Nekovar had come to watch Coffee with a Cop, came and visited us. And after talking to Felicia for about 5 minutes, she knew it. She didn't say anything, but Curtis was her boss for several years. And finally she says, "You don't recognize me, do you?" And Curtis was like, "Oh yeah, I do recognize you." So she has strong connections to our community already. While being a dispatcher, she went to school at Morton College. She started taking criminal justice courses, and she eventually transferred to Lewis University, where she got her degree in criminal justice and paralegal. After that, she went to the University of St. Francis, where she got her social worker degree, and she specializes in geriatrics. Coming out of University of St. Francis, she worked for a primary physician clinic where she partnered with a psychiatrist to counsel patients that were at risk. She did webinars for counseling, one-on-one counseling during the pandemic. She spent a lot of time doing webinars, so she's very, very, very good with that kind of medium. Most recently, she was hired by Northeast DuPage Family and Youth Services and basically was hired to fill our need. But she also works at Bensonville, which we want her to come by us more often. So we kind of share her with them. I want to tell two real quick stories about Felicia and what I think is a great program that we're starting here. Within a week that she started, a woman that I've known for several years, I met her here in Woodridge and I've got to know her very well, came to me and she was crying, like hysterical crying. She was concerned about her son, he was an adult and he had some mental illness. She was afraid that he was definitely at risk. In the past, I would have talked to her and gave her a phone number and said, "Hey, call DuPage County." But I said, "Wait a minute, I have someone for you to talk to right away." So I introduced her to Felicia. Felicia spent a lot of time talking to her. And this person would not take any help from the police department. I know that for a fact. So it was kind of difficult. Within a week, he was at our police station and Felicia was helping him through his problems. And so far, everything has been good. I mean, it was felt so good to actually make a connection right there and then, and it was a Woodridge connection. We didn't have to pass it off to anybody else. And another incident that happened about 2 weeks later, we had a pretty traumatic, violent event over a drug issue, where a family was, they felt jeopardized because there was actually shots fired, right? And this was a Hispanic family that just arrived here. They didn't feel comfortable coming to the police department at all. We introduced them to Felicia, and Felicia has been using the library, and Pam was so nice to let us use the library, and has been counseling their 6-year-old son, who's been terrified since this event every Friday. So those are 2 right away, and there's been plenty others. She came in with a caseload with the tornado victims right off the bat. It's just been such a blessing for us to be able to have her here. I think she's a perfect fit for us, and it's definitely a need. I'm going to turn it over to Felicia. And one thing I asked her is, what were her expectations when she came to Woodridge Police Department, and what is she seeing as reality? So.
Hello, and thank you for having me. I'm delighted to be here. So this has been just a full circle of what my expectations of work has, summed up to be, being in, with the police, having my background that I have, and it's just really come to fit exactly of what I've been looking for to do and to serve to do. So the officers have been great. They've come to me, they're very, receptive to the services and what I have to offer and really want to hear about it. And I think that's just a very good difference of what I worked for in the past. They definitely want to give more to the community. And I think with my presence, they have just really embraced that and just feel like we have someone who can make this happen, make it work, and make a difference for the community.
Well, wonderful. Thank you so much. And we're delighted to have you. That's the word I wrote down, believe it or not, when I just met you just a moment ago. First of all, we welcome you on behalf of the Village Board and our community and everyone here at the Village of Woodridge and our police department. Welcome,
thank you.
welcome. We are delighted to have you. Truly your credentials and your background, just incredibly so answering what the need is here in our community. And I know it wasn't long after you started that you helped out right away with all the families impacted by the tornado and that you're still helping today.
Yes,
As well as everyone, that does come through, whether it's the police department or through the village, whether it's a colleague. We cannot thank you for all that you do and the spirit that you do it and serving our community so well. So on behalf of all of us, we thank you so much and thank you from
Thank you.
Woodridge.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
We'll now move to comments from the public. Going to pause to acknowledge any written public comments that have been received prior to our meeting that do not relate to tonight's agenda. And if so, we will enter any of those into the public record, please. Administrator Stonich?
Thank you, Mayor. We haven't received any written comments.
Okay, thank you. And are there any members of our audience here this evening that would like to make a comment regarding any item not on the agenda this evening? Okay, we will go ahead and move on to comments that are related to our agenda this evening. Again, going to ask if there's any written public comments that have been received prior to our meeting this evening that do appear on tonight's agenda.
Mayor, we have not received any written comments.
And then I'm going to ask, please, now, if there's anyone in the audience that would like to make a comment that is related to tonight's agenda. If so, please come up to the podium. Okay, thank you very much for being here. We'll go ahead and move on. Going to move to our omnibus agenda this evening. Going to ask, please, for a motion to approve items A through O and the acceptance of P.
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Krusek. And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Martinez. Is there a request for any item to be separately considered this evening? Okay, seeing none, going to ask our village administrator, please, to review the items.
Thank you, Mayor Cunningham. Members of the board, good evening. First item A, Resolution 2022-19. There's a resolution to adopt the 2018 annual financial report for the Seven Bridges Golf Club covering the calendar year December 31st, 2018. Item B, Ordinance 2022-15 is an ordinance granting a minor amendment to a site plan related to 2806 83rd Street. This is the Sipley School Elementary generator. Applicant is Woodridge School District 68. Item C, Ordinance 2022-16 is a resolution to approve a waiver of zoning application fees for a minor amendment to a site plan. This is also in relationship to Sipley Elementary School. This is the relation to the generator as well. Item D, Ordinance 2022-17, an ordinance granting a minor amendment to a site plan, 2901 Jackson Drive. This is the Willow Creek Elementary Generator, School District 68. Item E, Ordinance 2022-18, a resolution to approve a waiver of zoning application fees, also for a minor amendment to a site plan, 2901 Jackson Drive. This is the Willow Creek Elementary School Generator, applicant Woodridge School District 68. Item F, Resolution 2022-20, resolution permitting the extension of a temporary COVID testing clinic located at CVS Pharmacy parking lot at 8645 Woodward Avenue. Item G, Resolution 2022-21, resolution permitting the extension of a temporary COVID testing clinic located at Woodridge Clinic parking lot located at 7530 Woodward Avenue. Item H, Resolution 2022-22, resolution authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute a certain agreement for 2501 Davie Road. This is the Prologis Warehouse Construction Inspection Services contract between the Village of Woodridge and James J. Bennis and Associates. Next item I, Resolution 2022-23, a resolution approving an extension of the turf maintenance services agreement, bid number 2021-02. This contract is with Siebert Landscaping for the village's annual turf maintenance program, which includes the mowing of public rights-of-ways for the 2022 season. Item J, Resolution 2022-24, resolution authorizing the mayor and clerk to execute an intergovernmental agreement between the County of DuPage and the Village of Woodridge for mowing along various county roads and rights-of-way. Item K, Resolution 2022-25, resolution ordering bid number 2022-04. This is for the Woodridge planting area and the weeding services agreement. Contract is also with Siebert Landscaping in the amount of $35,000. Item L, Resolution 2022-26, approval of a resolution approving a one-year extension of the street sweeping and disposal services agreement, bid number 2020-04. This contract is with Lakeshore Recycling Systems out of Morton Grove in the amount of $69,230.96. Item M, Ordinance 2022-19 is an ordinance to approve and publish the official zoning map of the Village of Woodridge. Item N, Resolution 2022-27 is a resolution authorizing the village administrator to enter into an agreement with the GAD Group for information technology systems and Tyler Munis Resource Support. Item O, Resolution 2022-28 is a resolution awarding bid 2022-06, which is the purchase of the impact trailer attenuator with airboard contract with Street Smart Rentals LLC out of Lino Lakes, Minnesota. And then the last item P are the accounts payable registers for February 25th and March 4th, 2022. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Administrator Stonich. Going to ask our clerk to please call the roll.
Trustee Krusek,
Aye.
trustee Page,
Aye.
trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Blair,
Aye.
trustee Kagan.
Aye.
Trustee Abbott.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much, everyone. Under presentation of communication in the mayor's report, I do have a report this evening. First of all, wishing everyone a happy St. Patrick's Day and also happy St. Joseph's Day. First item is our Woodridge Rotary Club partners, along with Shanahan's Food and Spirits, will host a fundraiser for Ukraine and the Ukrainian humanitarian efforts. It will be this Sunday, Sunday, March 27th, not this Sunday, my apologies, from 2 to 6 p.m. Be held at Shanahan's Food and Spirits, 1999 75th Street in Woodridge. It's going to be music, entertainment, silent auction, a buffet dinner, and a raffle. Suggested donation request is $25, all for a very good cause. Also, the Village of Woodridge is hiring summer seasonal full-time positions. It is a 40-hour work week. Hours are Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. until 3:30 p.m. Salary is $18 an hour. Work will involve manual labor, which is primarily outdoors. The duties will include assisting streets, water, and sewer and fleet maintenance crews with daily operations. Information can be found on our website under Woodridge Human Resources. The West Suburban Food Pantry is seeking volunteers. Not sure if everyone knows that the West Suburban Community Pantry is located in Woodridge. And do you know that volunteers spend 16,566 hours assisting and volunteering at the West Suburban Community Pantry? That's incredible. They stock shelves, they help the clients that go in, they volunteer the pantry with their mission, which is serving others and eradicating hunger. Right now, the WSCP is struggling to meet the community's need for meals. You can find out more information on their website. I know that they are asking for donations, and if you can help, I would please encourage. They just do excellent information. Also, I know right now they are preparing for Easter, and it's always a huge celebration in our community. So if you're able to help and get involved, that would be great. DuPage County Scarce is hosting its 16th annual Sustainable Design Challenge. This is part of the county, and Scarce is now accepting project registrations from local high school students for their 16th annual Sustainable Design Challenge, which is scheduled for April 5th. The challenge encourages students to construct building and landscaping models using environmental and water-friendly design practices. Registration will open through March 25th, and schools may opt to participate in person or virtually. You can find more information on Scarce's website at scarce.org, and the information is right on their website. There will be a virtual raptor show at our Woodridge Public Library. See owls, hawks, and other birds up close in this virtual program from Wings and Talons Raptor Handlers on Saturday, March 26th, 11 a.m. You can pre-register for a kid-friendly program right on the Woodridge Public Library's website. And there is a Zoom link, and all those that are brave enough to attend, even via Zoom, we encourage that. More information can be found on their website. That is my report for this evening. Administrator Stone, it's your report, please.
Thank you, Mayor Cunningham. Members of the board, good evening. First item A is ordinance 2022-13. It's an ordinance granting a minor amendment to a previously approved site plan. This is for Jefferson Junior High track and field facility located at 7200 James Avenue. The applicant is Woodridge School District 68. The board will recall that this item was continued from the March 3rd meeting. Superintendent Pat Brancato is here to review certain field changes that were made during the construction that do require village approval. At the March meeting, there were a few board questions that were raised, including some questions from the Woodridge Public Library that required additional follow-up and review. So Superintendent Pat Brancato is here this evening to provide an overview of those changes and address some of the questions that did come up on March 3rd. Mr. Brancato.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor Cunningham, members of the Board of Trustees. Thank you so much for having me out tonight. I do have phone boards. I could take a couple of seconds.
Yes, sure.
I just want to make sure if there's any questions. I also do have presentation. Hopefully, I'll be able to answer the questions that asked of last week. Or if I can't, certainly I could provide you the appropriate information.
If I could, I just want to be sure, excuse me for interrupting.
Yes.
Can everyone see this okay? Can you see it?
And I can, and it's also in my
Trustee Abbott?
presentation, so it'll be on the slides as well. So,
Trustee Abbott? Okay,
sure.
thank you.
Does that help?
Thank you very much.
And these are also included as slides in the presentation.
Yes.
So. Is there a? Oh, do you? Oh, okay. Thank you. I apologize. Oh. So again, I want to thank you all for allowing me to come back and answer any questions on behalf of the Board of Education that you may have. I also have with me our board president, Steve Gustus, and if there's any questions, his children have used Jefferson, the facilities quite a bit, so he may be able to give some insight as well. So what I want to do is really give a chance to update the questions that you may have had last, I think, March 3rd. If there's any information we can provide, and I tried to put together a presentation that maybe answers some of those questions, or at least allows for some further discussion. So for tonight, wanted to do a couple of things. One was to review and follow up with the track modifications. There was a couple of questions, I think, about end caps on the dugouts as well as the lighting. And so I wanted to address that and see if I could answer any questions with regard to that, as well as really kind of take a look at the historical use of Jefferson, because I think that's important perhaps to some of the other questions that you may have concerning the actual use of the facility now as a track and field. And then also discuss the use of those new facilities, the current use of it, how we've used it, how often we've used it, if there has been any parking disruptions. And then also there was the question of the West Gate, which I wanted to be able to address if there are further concerns about that or questions about that. I do have, I noticed you're taking a look through some of the materials. I have provided some materials for you to take a look at. Those materials are supportive of the presentation I'm giving tonight. So I wanted to make sure if I made a reference to anything in the presentation, that I also gave the underlying materials for you to be able to review. So with that, our first, I think the first step is really to take a look and review and follow up some of the track modifications that were discussed March 3rd. And if there's any further questions about these, we certainly can discuss them. The first thing that we did, and they're on the charts as well, and I also have them in the presentation, is we removed the fence panel, the end caps at the end of each dugout to allow for the handicap accessibility per the Park District's request. And if I can swing past, okay, this is the baseball fields, and if you see here, I'm pointing to the dugouts.
I'm sorry, Mr. Brancato, I apologize for interrupting you, but when you move, can you take the mic with you?
Oh.
Just because the folks at home, they can't hear you if you're.
Thank you so much. I apologize. So the end caps here are actually the end caps on the end of the dugouts, and they're also up on your slide as well. Those were removed for handicap accessibility for our students. We also extended the foul pole, and we followed the foul pole, the netting along the side of the parking lot for Woodridge Jefferson Junior High, the north lot. That was actually a request of the board because there were some safety issues of foul balls going into the parking lot, and we wanted to be able to protect our students and our staff. So those were the two major changes that were made at the ball diamonds. We then had some changes which were discussed as well with the track itself. And I think a number of those items were discussed, so I'll just go over them briefly. We had a shed that we put on the cement platform. The gates we replaced with 6-foot gates to move them to 8-foot rolling gates along the perimeter of the fencing. We did take a northwest gate and a southwest gate that was originally on the plan, and we combined it with an 8-foot rolling gate. We felt that would be more helpful for two reasons. One, it'd be easier for maintenance to get in, and it would also help us for cross country, because we've had cross country and we've had the conference and track meets there for, I don't know how long, certainly much longer than I've been here. And we've held the conference track meet as well, or the cross country meet for 10 years as well. So that would be very helpful for us as well. One thing that was mentioned last week, the question about the lights. When we submitted our plan, I think it was May 31st, 2019. If you see up on the board, the lights were directly across each other on the plans. During construction, the lights were moved to the corners of the field, the track, and I think there was a discussion about whether or not they could adequately fit being directly across from each other, and so they moved them to the corners. The lighting, I think there's a question about the lighting, about the lumens and the candle foots, and I think there's some outstanding questions about that. But they're substantially similar in terms of the light output that they have. But that was a change that was made after the original plans was made. I think there was a discussion about this last time on March 3rd. And there was a conversation about the light being moved and a question about when that actually occurred. So that did occur after we submitted our plan to the Board of Trustees, to the village. And so we're asking for that relief as well, I think. So I think I've hit the questions. Are there any questions on changes in the field or anything I may have missed?
Thank you very much. Let me go ahead and ask the
Sure.
fellow board members if anyone has any questions for you at this time. Any questions? Trustee Blair?
I have a question. You know, the modifications that were made for the ball field are completely reasonable. Not a problem with that. I do have a couple questions, one being on the lights. Now they were moved. Does this have any kind of an impact on the neighbors behind there? Is it more illumination in their backyards? Is it,
Oh, okay.
they were moved from where they were originally?
Yes.
So does it have an effect on our neighbors behind the field?
So that's a great question. And thank you, Trustee Blair, for asking that. The lights across the field were originally set. They're on the north side of the field and they're all projected downwards. So there's moving them to the side has not been for, I mean, I've taken a look at the Musco lighting. There's engineers much more sophisticated out than that about the lighting, but in actually taking a look at the candle foot and the spread, the current lighting shows that the difference between having it directly across and the sides seems to be insignificant. And the most important thing is, you know, we have our neighbors are really to the south. And if I got that right, yeah, to the south. And those neighbors have a line of trees that are also blocking any bleed that could be happening. And the good news is that the Musco lighting information, and I think it's in the packets that you have, show that there's no glare by the time you hit our neighbors to the south.
I do have, we'll get to the main topic here. We'll go right to the gate.
If I could, I'm just going to interject a question based on your first question. And then, so is it safe to say then, Superintendent, that you've not had any calls from any neighbors when if the lights have been on, and I don't know what events you've been able to hold there, but have you had any feedback from any neighbors or any concerns raised?
I'm only aware of one complaint from an individual who, from the beginning, complained about having a track.
Right.
That's the only complaint that I've ever had knowledge of. I've not heard any complaints from anybody else. I have heard a number of people wanting to rent the track and complaining about they can't rent the track. You know, a number of types of, but nobody, to my knowledge, having any complaints about the lighting or the track itself.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Trustee Blair, I'm sorry, and then we'll get to anyone else who may have a question.
If I may, Mayor, this addresses Trustee Blair's question on lighting. So Superintendent Brancato and I were speaking today. There is a photometric plan that the updated calculations that need to be made that will be provided by the school district, and they're engineered for the village staff and our engineering review. And so we will submit that what was actually built, we will review, pardon me, what was actually built conforms with the plan. If it does not, there needs to be other adjustments or the school district will need to request additional relief. So the proposed ordinance in front of you would condition it upon final submittal, review, and approval and conformance with the village's code and the approved plans.
Okay, so our vote tonight is contingent on how the report comes back. Okay.
And we are in the process of putting that together for the Board of Trustees.
My next question is, and this was the big sticking point last meeting, was the gate at the west end. As you know, there's a sign there. It's a welcome sign. And we had extensive discussions before the track was built. Many board members, Director Dubay, we had a lot of concerns on the parking, and understandably so. We didn't want two major events going on at the same time where patrons of the library would have nowhere to park, or maybe vice versa, it could be. And there was supposed to be meetings where you would coordinate with the park district, the school district, and the library. And apparently that has not happened. And that's a concern. And I think it should be a concern for all three parties, because you want to make sure we're not infringing on each other and bumping each other out of parking spaces, if you will. The main thing is, for me, one of the main things is the welcome sign. We had and I know we discussed it at the meetings, extensive discussions on using that for public access. And that was a huge concern. And then when it's built, there's a sign up that says, welcome. I would like to see, for me to support this, the sign removed. And I would also like to see a couple of signs put up that say no public access. And I think that would go a long way in taking care of some of the concerns.
Trustee Blair, I agree with you 100%. And when we talk about the gate itself, and we've got it up here on the screen, originally had two 6-foot swinging gates. And the one was up in the northwest corner. And when I visited, I think June 20th or June 19th, 2019, that northwest gate was a concern, which we addressed as well, and we believed it was a concern. And so we have, and I think in the June 19th or June 20th agreements with the Board of Trustees, with the village, is that we would not use that as a pedestrian access. And so that was the northwestern gate. When we moved the two gates, combined them and made them into one, the same principle applies. It's only a maintenance gate. It's not for pedestrian access. We certainly will take the signs down. We have no problem putting a sign up that's saying no pedestrian access or whatever. That's perfectly fine with us. I want to make sure that from 3 years ago, 2019, when we made the agreement with the village and the library, we never really intended that to be a pedestrian gate. And still to this day, we don't. We put up a welcome sign, and certainly if it hasn't been taken down, it will be taken down. The gate is intended to be locked at all times, except with the exception of maintenance, with the exception of school personnel using it. And we have been using it for cross-country for that final 100-yard dash into the track, which is, I don't know if anybody's had a cross-country student or child. It's the most exciting part of the race, is that last part of the dash. So that's really the only purposes for that gate. It is, again, I want to make sure that the village understands we did not want to use it as a pedestrian gate back in 2019. Moving together, we still do not want, it's clearly intended as a maintenance. For us, clearly a maintenance gate, clearly for cross-country, and that's the extent of it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. And actually, that is the third part of my presentation, so we may have covered it, so thank you so much.
I'm going to ask if anyone else would like to.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, please, Trustee Abbott.
Superintendent, I had a question regarding the, when it would be open, this gate, for maintenance, and obviously if school personnel need to go in and out. But what I'm a little unclear on is, so you want to be able to open it so it can be the final entrance into the stadium for the cross country. But would that only apply to cross country? Because it seems like for track meets, there would be no reason for people to be running from outside to in.
That's exactly right. It's only for cross country.
Okay, so it would not be opened for track and field, other than maintenance maybe needing to bring in equipment or something like that?
Yes, because
Okay.
we do have a gate on the southwest side. So there's the 8-foot gate in the center on the west side, and the southwest side, there's another 8-foot gate. That's where students, parents, faculty, staff would enter in and out. Yeah, so the gate is really, again, is intended clearly. Our intention was always to use it for a maintenance gate, yes.
Right, I know. We're just trying to figure out the parameters. of
Yes,
that, Because obviously the library has concerns that maybe it could be used for other purposes and we just trying to draft something so that we're all on the same page and come to an agreement. But so it would only be cross-country, not track.
Yeah, I can't imagine any, because we, any purpose for track, because we have our long jump pit on the south side. We have the shot put and the discus on the other side, the 100-yard dash. It would be closed during track, so we don't have parents and kids ingress and egress out of this. So it would be, so I can't imagine any use for it other than maintenance or school personnel.
Well, that's kind of where I'm going with this, because obviously for a track meet, the only purpose would be for parents to come in and out and things. And obviously that's not what the intent was. So I just want to make sure we're limited to cross country.
Yes, yeah, and I'm sorry, during a track, other than for maintenance before and after, the gate would be closed during meets. Yes,
Thank you very much.
thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Can I just follow up with that? Just for the cross-country, would the gate be opened before the meet starts? Or would you open it up, for the meet to start and then close it when it's done?
It would, in preparation for cross-country, there's signage, there's postage for the students. And as part of that, I'm assuming that the gate is open before the meet for the students, and after the meet, it's closed. I'm not sure about how, I'm assuming that's how it's done at the schools. Prior to the meet, they prepare the field, that's part of it. And then after, it's closed. And in my presentation, I have some times about how the cross-country we've had it at our school, and it's typically between 4:15 and 6:30. So it's about an hour and 45 minutes for a total meet.
Okay,
So it's for a short period of time.
thank you.
And then can we just clarify, is that for meets and practices? Because I have been at the library and seen the students come out and running, and even to the 44 acres here, practicing. So,
Yes, it would for all cross-country, because we would have to have our students be able to
okay.
practice and run the track.
Thank you for clarifying.
Thank you.
that.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anyone else? Yes, Trustee Page?
Thank you. I want to go back to a point that Trustee Blair raised, but wasn't really addressed. And that's partnership with the library and partnership with the village. One of the things that came up on May 3rd was the definition of major events, because major events you were supposed to notify and partner with. What steps have you taken? Do you plan to take to increase communication and partnership with your fellow intergovernmental organizations?
Thank you for that question. We haven't had, during COVID, we haven't had a lot of meetings. Having said that, you're probably similar. During COVID, there wasn't a lot of meetings. Having said that, there's no excuse for not having the quarterly meetings. We can have the quarterly meetings, and we will do that moving forward. I think I put in one of my responses that the park district and us, we met once for the purposes of deciding how the maintenance was being done on the field, and so we haven't had any meetings. But that's no excuse. We agreed that we would have quarterly meetings, and we will have quarterly meetings. And again, that's my mistake. When we talk about major events, and in the presentation here, I do have the major events. Our definition of major events has always been predicated on the June 20th and the June 19th agreements that we had with our traffic control plan that we submitted to the village, and it's been on our website, I think, for the last year and a half, and the agreements that we made with the Board of Trustees, the village, in 2019 as well. If we had something that resulted in a major event, we would ask for a special use permit. And in our traffic control plan, we have three plans. One is our regular events, which is really anything that we run, whether it be soccer, softball, our regular cross-country events where it's 2 teams, maybe 3. Now track, maybe two, 3 teams, and then conference, which is a larger event, and track, which is a larger event, which was identified in the traffic control plan. So all of our events have been under the traffic control plan. For us, we haven't had any issues in terms of parking because most of the events, students get dropped off in buses. So it's really more parents coming, and they come in and they come out. If my kid is in the shot put and he's the discus, great, take them, they take them home. So there's a lot of movement in and out. I would be concerned if I had heard, or if I hear from the village, the library, anybody that there's concerns about parking. We've been very lucky that we have had track and cross-country events for the past year. And I'm glad that I haven't heard any complaints and I haven't heard any issues regarding disruption for parking for the library. We have had, or the village, because really you share the parking, or the police, really, because you all share the parking spot. We've had our traffic control plan, like I said, up on our website for about 1.5 years, and I'm thinking that people follow it. And as if you look at the track itself, our traffic is really driven south because of where the gates are. So if you park on the south end of the parking lot, your gates are the southeast entrance, and that's where most of our parents come in. You'll have parents come in on the north side because obviously we have parking there, and then there's a sidewalk that goes, but it all funnels to the southeast or to the middle east side of the track. And so we've had, I think that we've been very fortunate is that the planning that's put together has resulted in everybody either going in the Jefferson parking lot or for larger events under our traffic control plan, like our cross country, they've used V3. And I think it's been pretty successful. No matter what we do at Jefferson, we always have people parking in the neighborhood. Whether it's a sporting event, whether it's a basketball event, whether it's a curriculum night, and if there's any way to work with the village on putting up signs there or something, no parking between 4:36 on these dates, or on opposite sides or something like that to help alleviate the traffic in the neighborhood, that would be great. That would be tremendously helpful for us. But again, I think we've been very fortunate that we've been able to, this past year, we've run track events, we've run the cross country, we've run our baseball, our softball, we've run our soccer, and my understanding is that there hasn't been any disruption to any services at the village and the library, which I'm very happy about because obviously we want to be good neighbors.
Thank you. Anyone else? Well, first of all, thank you very much for the presentation this evening. And thank you, President Gustus, for being here as well. And also the Executive Library Director, Pam DeBay, is here this evening. Important though, I think one of the words is partnership, right? We're all in this together and we serve the same community. So working together is so important, and I know would benefit everyone immensely. So as events are coming forward, I know there will be good communication prior, as well as maybe after, having the first couple events and seeing how they go in maybe a post pandemic environment as events are hosted here at Jefferson. And, it really is all about being able to have an enjoyable event held in Woodridge for the families and of course the students and all the visiting students. So working together is so important. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. And as I said, I also have additional slides here, but they address the same questions. The slides in here will talk about the events that we had before, the events we have now subject to our traffic control plan with the village, and also the agreements. And so the information in the presentation is there certainly for review. And again, as I told Mr. Stonich, there's the question about larger major events. We never want to put anything on that would cause disruption or cause distress or cause any issues with the infrastructure. We talked about what would be for us, what would be a major event. And we've already been approached by that. So we have our conference, we have our teams, we have Burr Ridge, we have Lamont, and we have our conference, but we've already been approached by the state asking us to put on IESA events for middle school, because I don't want to say that people are jealous of us, but we're one of the few middle schools that have this type of facility available for middle school students. And we have gotten requests and responses from high school football teams. We've got requests from athletic trainers who've had to chase off. We've had other types of requests from people all over. And, the IESA wanting to come in. Now that's a large event. That's a Saturday. That's a half day. That's a bring in concession, bring in vendors, bring in, traffic control. we are nowhere near any of that. As a matter of fact, I talked with our principal, and he said, yes, he's been approached by them already because of the facilities that we have. And we've already said, no, we're not doing anything like that until we know that we're comfortable in doing what we've agreed to do, which was our traffic control plan with our events and our cross country and our track. So, so please be assured that there's not going to be a Saturday where 40 teams are going to show up at a track and nobody's going to know. We're working very hard to make sure that what we use is compatible with the village, the library, the police department, and all the available parking.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So we do have an ordinance before us this evening, ordinance 2022-13. Going to ask our attorney, Pat, please.
Yes, just so the trustees are clear on what is being proposed in the request for the approvals, the minor amendment with the approvals that are set forth in section 3 of the ordinance. It's important to note that section 4 of the ordinance indicates what the conditions are on the grants of relief, which are those provided in section 2 and 3 of the proposed ordinance. And again, just so the record is clear, the grants of relief, as the ordinance is currently drafted, are made subject to the following conditions. Submittal of plans for permitting purposes are to be submitted to the submitted by the school district as required by the village's building commissioner and or community director of community development. In addition, changes that are not compliant, changes that have already been made that are not compliant to all village codes and ordinances must be remediated, which includes relocation or complete removal as required by the building commissioner, public works or engineering staff, and or the director of community development. Further, except as expressly set forth in the approvals, all other provisions contained in the previous ordinance, which is ordinance 2019-13, remain in full force and effect. And that includes, but it's not limited to, the required submittal of the photometric lighting plans and village approval of those plans. In addition, the other limitation set forth in the ordinance as presented is that the gate installed closest to the public library parking area is going to be locked and remain closed at all times except when being used for maintenance purposes only. That's what the item before you currently reads. Also, the existing welcome signage must be removed. So if any trustee wants to make a motion for that particular ordinance as drafted, they certainly can do so. If someone wants to make an ordinance to include the additional requested relief about the use of the gate from the school district, certainly they can make a motion to amend the proposed ordinance to that effect.
Attorney Pat, just a clarification, the original ordinance included the communication aspect with the other partners.
That is correct.
Okay.
Yes, specifically that one of the reasons why, although I think it's doesn't need to be stated, but we stated it anyway, regarding the applicability of the previous ordinance is because we want to make sure that it's clear to everyone up front that those other aspects do remain in force and effect.
Any other questions?
Attorney Pratt, I would like to see included in this Part D that the 2 no pedestrian access signs be put up.
So are you, you're seeking to, I want to make sure that I'm clear. I don't want to speak for you. You're making a motion to approve this ordinance with the following amendment under section 4 sub D, where it says additionally, the existing welcome signage shall be removed and signage.
2 signs. 1 on each side.
Okay, 2 signs. Stating, I'm sorry, what was the language you wanted to use?
Well, either no public access or no pedestrian access. I don't know.
Well, let's go with no public access. No public access shall be installed.
And then I have one more question, and I don't see it in that section or any, maybe I'm missing it. There was a question on, because the word major events, that there would be collaboration between. We don't have a different definition of what a major event is. I would prefer that it would just be generally working together, collaborating, and maybe take the word major out. And
Well-
I think that would be completely avoided when you start your quarterly meetings. I think that problem would be taken care of.
Of course, that aspect is dealt with in the original ordinance, the 2019 ordinance. I'm just making sure.
Yeah, I didn't see that in there.
Well, there's not a definition of major, and again, I think part of the purpose of the quarterly meetings, and I don't want to speak for any of the governmental directors that are here today, but or superintendents, but I believe part of the basis of the quarterly meetings is to figure out what events are major, because I suspect that what the district, the park district and school district thinks is major may not be what the village and the library district think are major, but that's the reason why you have those meetings, so there's an open line of communication. I'm not sure that we can actually define, what specifically major means, or I think that has to be something that would be developed probably by the directors, administrators, and superintendents.
And we have been operating based on the prior agreements of the traffic control plan that was submitted, as well as the agreements that we made with the village previously.
I was just bringing, I know it was brought up last, it was a concern of the library. That, that, pardon me, that word major either needed to be removed or defined. But again, when the quarterly meetings take place, I would hope that would be taken care of. I guess, can I ask Director DeBay, how does that all, do you find that comfortable?
Again, Director Dubay, if you would identify yourself.
Yes,
for the
yes.
record.
I'm Pam Dubay, the director of the Woodridge Public Library. I do still feel a bit of confusion about when you think something is going to impact our parking and when we're going to be interested in hearing about it. Some of the things you said I agree with, but then I become concerned when you say something like, well, the plan's up on the website, the schedule's on the website, so there haven't been major events, so there's no issue. I don't know that I feel like I should have to periodically check your website to see what you're doing. And I can't necessarily look at a title of an event and correlate it to what you have in your traffic control plan. I think you're asking me to do a lot of research. And so that does leave me with a lingering concern about the issue. I don't know if there can or can't be a definition of a major event, but it does seem like your perspective has been there haven't been major events, therefore no communication was needed. And that I don't want that sort of feeling to continue.
No, and I agree with 100%. I sent an email, we requested, I said, give me a time, we will set, I'm going to be here for hopefully a couple of years. We'll set quarterly meetings out for the next 4 years. And I think that probably the best people to talk with will be the principal, because the principal, and I'll be there if needed, but the principal knows each and every event that happens every season, because we have spring and fall events. And so they will be able to identify with you all the events that are occurring. And I kind of have a list. Here's the events. We have soccer, softball, cross country, and track is new. Anything that really deviates from that, that would use more of our parking lot that we're already entitled to in V3, the new addition. Those are things that we don't want to infringe, because when we have posted on the website, we have those specific parking lots identified. We don't have the library parking lot identified. So in those quarterly meetings, we will lay out everything that we have up to that date for you. And they'll all fall under here. If there's anything that doesn't fall under here, we'll certainly explain that. And I don't know what that would be right now, because I don't anticipate we'll have anything that's like a Jubilee or, I'm kind of thinking out of my head, but we will have quarterly meetings and we'll talk about all the events that we're having out there. And the softball and the soccer typically are not heavy. It's really more the 8 events, the cross country and the track. And, I think we've been pretty successful because there hasn't been disruptions, but in the quarterly meetings, all this will be run out for you.
Superintendent, but I think this is right where our concern is. I don't want to speak for village staff or Director Dubé, but this is the first time we've seen this. So that all of these events are occurring at this field and it is not being communicated or shared with our partners that these events are occurring. I know we probably cannot define major events, but if I'm assuming that green column is supposed to be 2022.
No, these are all the events that we've had over the past year.
So it is these are last year's events. Do you know your track events, what dates they are for 2022? If you don't know, does the principal know?
May 3rd and May 9th.
Has that information been shared?
Not yet, because I don't know if it's finalized, but we certainly will finalize that.
That's the concern. More than anything, this lack of communication, as simple as sharing a date. And maybe it's not major. Maybe it's 1 school, maybe it's 2 schools. But the fact that dates are not being shared that that's not good partnership.
No, and we'll fix that going forward. That's my commitment to the board.
May I follow
Madam-
up on that?
Madam-
I'm sorry, go ahead, Greg.
Madam Mayor, it seems like the problem can be resolved by, I thought everyone's on the same page that there would be quarterly meetings that Ms. Dubé could be invited to.
Mhm.
So if that's the case, then it seems like you'll be able to figure out what you'll be able to communicate at that time,
Yes.
right? And you can tell what's going to happen. And Ms. Dubé, if you think something is an issue, you can work around it or talk about it. It seems like we're trying to get into this major versus minor and when do you notify? It seems like the quarterly meeting should resolve most of those problems, right?
Yes.
Okay. I just didn't know if I was missing something.
And again, I go back and I apologize for not having the quarterly meetings. I mean, there's a lot of things that have happened, but ultimately it's my responsibility. We didn't have them and
Well,
I
the important
apologize.
thing is on a going forward basis, just make sure everything goes smooth. And it seems like quarterly Ms. Dubé, I mean, if you're invited to the quarterly meetings, do you think that will give you the communication access that you need to know what will be done and what effect it would have on the library, if any?
Yes, and I'm hoping that if we have any concerns about any of the events, there will be some level of compromise or trying to work with us from the school.
Sure,
Okay.
sure. I want to make sure that throughout this whole process, the last 3 or 4 years, it's always been our intention to be good neighbors. I mean, when we think about even going back to I don't want to bring up the gates again, but going back to the gates, one of the reasons that we moved that gate, the northwest corner, is because we didn't want people parking right in your library spots and walking straight through that gate. And so that's why we moved it and we combined them. So we are trying to be good neighbors. And I hope that that's seen that we are.
And could I also ask a follow-up question? Because when you talk about you're being approached for rental and some of these very large events, which you're not doing, but are there intentions of doing that perhaps in the future? Because those certainly would be things that sound very large in scope.
Oh, I have no, I couldn't tell right now. This is what we're mainly concerned about is the soccer, that we have been approached by larger entities, much larger than us, saying, hey, we'd like to use this and we've said no. Again, because we don't want to put anything on that would make the village, make us, make anybody else look bad in putting it on. So yes, we have been approached. And if it is something that would take more than our parking lot or the V3 or additional, then we would be approaching the village and we'd be approaching you because we don't, I don't want to say we don't want anybody parking in your lots because they're public parking lots and I can't stop anybody from doing that. But I want to make sure that when we have events that they're driven towards our parking lot, towards V3 that's our main goal.
Yes, yes, okay. Yeah, and that is part of the initial concern is the orientation, the way things are set up may be fine for the events you've had thus far, but if they become larger in the future, we just want to make sure that there isn't an existing setup that is going to make things worse because of that.
No, I
Okay,
I
Right.
hope we don't, because then that's a failure on our part.
okay, that's, those are all my comments and questions.
Well,
Thank you.
thank you very much. And just to be sure that if there is a large event, and I guess at this point, I don't even want to use that major and descriptive, but the special event permit would still be in place and needing to,
Oh, yes, of course.
make
yes.
those arrangements with the village. And then I think it would be prudent after the May 3rd and May 9th events that are going to be held to maybe follow up directly, maybe the principal could reach out to Director Dubay and get some feedback and just see, was there any issue at all? Just to kind of touch base, whether it's quarterly or not, we've got some events coming up. It might be a good time to just follow up with each other and see how things went.
Yeah, and that's something we certainly could do. But again, I am excited about the fact that we've held these events and there hasn't been any disruption. I mean, I'm very proud of the fact that we have held these current and we haven't had any disruptions to either the village or the library.
Anyone else? Yes, please. Yes, Trustee Martinez?
Just a quick question. At the end of this whole discussion, from District 68 standpoint, who is in charge of coordinating this?
In charge of, I'm sorry.
Who is
Mr.
in
Martinez?
charge of coordinating the events, making sure that communications take place? Hopefully it's not you. You got plenty to do.
No, and I appreciate that
No,
comment.
I'm serious.
It is really our athletic director and our principal. Our principal was a former athletic. Yes.
Jefferson.
It's
Okay.
Justin Warnke and Andrew Neidlinger who really drive all of this. And so, and even preparing for this presentation, I spent an hour with each of them saying, okay, what events have you had? Because other than me attending them and, kind of doing this, it's really the middle school that is responsible for putting them together.
So in your packet that you passed to us, there is a letter signed by you and Executive Director of the Park District, Mike Adams. Is any event planned outside District 68, say by the Park District, included on these restrictions?
Of course, I can't speak for the Park District. I am not aware of any events that would take more parking other than what we previously described that it's in our plan. But that would ultimately be a question for Mr. Adams.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, please.
maybe it would be simpler if, when we have these quarterly meetings, we just have a master calendar that each of the various governmental bodies can have in front of them that says, here's what's happening on such and such a day going forward, because most of these, you're going to know them almost a year in advance or have a pretty good idea on it. So if everyone's looking at the same piece of paper, we shouldn't have people wondering what's going on. And if something else does come up, fine, you bring it forward at one of the quarterly meetings because it's not going to happen in the next couple of weeks. Plenty of time to figure out, is this okay or not? So
Sounds good. And actually, I was on the same vein of thinking it might behoove us at this point, and I'll see if there's anyone else that has any comments, but I think it'd be good for Director Dubay and Principal Warnke to meet and go over what is happening now and what the plans are, and then to make sure that follow-up happens, because I think it would be good to make sure that Director Dubay is saying we had no issues or this was something that came up. I'm hoping not, but I think it just would be good and reassuring to the library and Director Dubay.
We'll reach out tomorrow.
Okay, thank you very much. Anyone else?
Just a little clarification. I think the calendar with the quarterly meetings is a great idea. Do you anticipate either one of you? Okay. Your events are planned, I'm sure, very far in advance. Is there a way to communicate, like, if the libraries have some wonderful, big, major events, and there'll be some major events at the field, how, I guess I'm asking the question, how can, since they're scheduled so far out, maybe there needs to be discussion before something like that is scheduled, so they don't wind up on the same day, because that could be a disaster for everybody concerned.
Yeah, well, the reality for middle school, because we're not high school, we're not college, we're not the pros. The reality for middle school events is that sometimes they change on a dime. And so I don't know how many basketball games I've walked into that weren't there when I walked in. I said, well, what happened? Oh, we couldn't get the busing, so they're over at, and so, we will try the best that we can to go out. And some things are seasonal. Track and cross country are seasonal because they're outside. They'll get canceled because of the rain, that type of thing. But as far out as we can plan, sure. Again, it's my failure that we didn't have the quarterly meetings, but we will have the quarterly meetings, and we will have the information that we have will be available to the library. I truly, I'm hoping that I'm truly saying that we will do that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, so as we move forward, I'm going to ask Attorney Pat to kind of walk us through. Yes.
Could I make a comment about?
Yes, please.
One of the changes that.
Again, if you
Trustee Blair-
identify
Sorry,
yourself for
thank
the
you.
record and
Yes,
speak
thank
in the
you.
mic.
Good evening, Steve Gustis, President of the Board of Education, District 68. More commonly known as Ryan and Claire's dad, probably how you know me. I did want to just make I noted that Trustee Blair requested a change in the wording on the sign that we're to put up for no public access. I'd just like to make a suggestion there. So as a duly elected official myself, all of you are duly elected officials responsible to our taxpayers. When we, had the idea for the track and started the whole idea of the track, we wanted it, of course, it's first and foremost for the students of District 68. It's also a community track. It's open to our community. I would just be concerned about a sign that says no public access. And I would just like to put in a request or a suggestion that we talk about it or think about it as pedestrian access. I don't want our public, any of our public, our neighbors and that, to show up and think that they can't access the track somewhere. I understand the gate. We don't want anybody going there. That was never our intention. We certainly don't want anyone there. But if we could just say no pedestrian access, that might help us to say, rather than anybody walks up there and see, which again, hopefully they don't, because I think we've taken away quite a few things to encourage people to walk that way. We don't want them walking that way anyway. But if you would consider that change, I guess, to pedestrian access versus no public access. The track is there for public use as well. When the school district and park district is not using it. So that's all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, the remaining issue on the table, I believe that hasn't really been discussed at the board level tonight, is the request from the school district to have the gate open, not just for maintenance, but for cross-country meets and practices. So I guess it's, before we have a formal vote on a proposed ordinance, it might be worthwhile to have the board weigh in on whether they're interested in expanding the proposed ordinance to include opening the gate for meets and or practices, both, neither, one or the other.
Madam Mayor?
Yes, please.
Yeah, I didn't know whether I could do that with Trustee Blair's amendment out there, but I would like to add that amendment that it can also be open for the limited purpose of cross-country meets and practice.
Thank you, Trustee Krusek.
Madam Mayor, I would concur with Trustee Krusek.
Thank you, Trustee Abbott. Trustee Martinez?
I'm okay.
Anyone else? Any other feedback?
Okay, so
Can I make a motion?
I want to make sure that we're before, yes, but I want to make sure that the motion that you're going to make is the motion that we're going to discuss, right? So, sorry, I'm trying to draft it while we're in the meeting. I know it's very exciting viewing, but
Would that also include school personnel as well?
I'm sorry?
Would that also include school personnel as well? I'm sorry if I'm not here to make an amendment, but I didn't know if that was included.
I'm gonna read the proposed amendment, and if you believe it requires additional, you can always ask the board. Okay, so let me just, this would be an amendment to section 4D of the proposed ordinance, and I will include trustee Blair's request as well as trustee Krusak's request. Again, these are the limitations subject to the following conditions, A, B, C, and then now D, that the gate installed closest to the Woodridge Public Library parking area shall be locked and remain closed at all times, except when being used for maintenance purposes, comma, as well as for cross-country meets and practices, comma, only. Period. Additionally, the existing welcome signage shall be removed, comma, and 2 signs stating, quote, no pedestrian access, end quote, shall be installed.
Mhm.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. Superintendent Mercado, is that,
Oh, I would request if it could be amended to include school personnel being able to access the gate.
For what purpose?
That maintenance gate will have school personnel going out to get things, to come back. You know, and I couldn't identify specific examples, but if school personnel could use the gate to go in and out, whether to be get a rake or to get other types of things, or to, I can't imagine right now, but I was hoping that school personnel could use the gate to.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, please.
wouldn't that be covered under maintenance?
Do we need to distinguish that further, or would it be included under maintenance?
well, at the risk of putting the superintendent on the spot, what he's talking about sounds like maintenance, but seems to, there's a little bit of a vague, I mean, I don't really know what you're asking over and above what would be used for maintenance. Somebody needs to bring things in and out, like put the cones away or take the cones out. Sounds like maintenance or sounds like preparation for a meet, but I don't want to speak for you. So.
Okay.
guess
I mean,
I'd
if
like
that's
to
if that's
ask-
the understanding, I'm fine.
Let's get some feedback just very quickly. Anyone have objection to including the staff at the school district?
Yes.
So we have yes. So let's go down the line. Trustee Abbott?
Well, I guess I don't know if I have it because it's just too vague for me to come up with an opinion. If you're talking about things that are ancillary to meets and practices and maintenance of the track and field, then I'm fine with that. If it's just because, you know, teachers want to use it as a shortcut to go take a walk at lunch, well, then I'm not okay with that. So I guess if we could just kind of maybe tailor something to, I mean, again, I'm not exactly sure, but I thought, I sense that what you're trying to say is that just saying it's for tracks and meets and maintenance, that there may be ancillary activities associated with those that would require someone to go out and get something or whatever.
Yes.
If we could modify, I would be okay if we modified it.
Wondering
to-
after hearing you, Trustee Abbott, if the existing language actually covers pretty much all of it, whether
Well-
it's maintenance or.
I think it would be maybe make it clearer for everyone if we use the existing language and just add in and other purposes ancillary to track meets and practices.
But you don't want to say track meets though.
Or I'm sorry, cross-country meets and practices. Thank you for that. Because I think that's taking into account, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Superintendent, I don't mean to speak for you, but I that's what I understood your concern to be.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, my main concern is that I convey to the village board that it's not being used for pedestrian access. That's the main thing I want to, and so however it's shaped, to allow our school personnel for, you know, cross-country maintenance or ancillary purposes associated with that would be
Right. I
fine.
mean, I think that puts some, well, I guess my concern is, I think everyone just has some concern that if it's too vague, it may grow or may become something other than what we're all kind of thinking it is.
Yeah.
So that's why I would suggest adding that language that, and
If I,
purposes ancillary to same.
so with that in mind, the additional changes would be, again, gate installed closest to the Woodridge Public Library parking area shall be locked and remain closed at all times, excuse me, at all times, except when being used for maintenance purposes, as well as for cross-country meets and practices and staff activities, because you're talking about staff, right? Okay, and staff activities ancillary thereto, period.
That's what I would like it to read.
Anyone have any objections to that? Otherwise, we're going to go ahead and move on. We okay?
I object.
Okay.
The moment you start talking ancillary purposes, anything can fall under that definition. And that also produces more keys when you start using general terms like personnel. Is this now going to be a gate because they're personnel that they're using it to come in and out for PE classes? I object to that language.
I agree with trustee Page.
So at this point,
Well, there's no motion currently on the floor. So
Can I make?
if someone wants to make a motion to include, let's call them three, the proposed ordinance with the three changes. Change number one being trustee Blair's proposed no pedestrian access signage installed. Number two being trustee Krusak's inclusion or expansion of the use for cross-country meets and practices. And three being trustee Abbott's suggestion about expanding it further to allow staff activities ancillary to cross-country meets and practices and maintenance purposes. So if someone wants to make a motion to include as previously presented or with 1, 2, and 3, certainly that would be the way to handle it, I think.
Are we able to vote on those individually instead of as a package?
it's proposed.
Under a Roberts, and in a Roberts sense, I believe if someone wants to make a motion, let's just say for the sake of argument, that includes all three, I think you vote up and down, yay or nay for that. If that fails, then there can be a different motion brought that would include 1 or 2, or just 1 or none of them.
So
I would like-
I'm going to ask that we.
I would like to make a
Trustee-
motion
Yes, please.
to amend to include the 3 categories that that Attorney Pat just mentioned. Those being no pedestrian access, two no pedestrian access signs being added, 1 welcome sign being removed, that the gate be allowed open for cross-country meets and practices, and for staff to use it, maintenance, and for staff to use it for purposes ancillary thereto.
Thank you very
And
much.
again, just so the record's clear, you're actually moving to approve the ordinance as amended.
Yes.
Okay.
Second,
Thank you, trustee Krusak. Any further discussion on this item? If our clerk would please call the roll.
Trustee Page,
No.
trustee Martinez,
I'd be specific. I'll vote for 1 and 2, no for the 3.
Okay, so
Then
you're
that's a
voting no
no.
for what's currently on the floor.
Just wanted
Yeah,
to make it
okay,
clear.
okay, so that's a no. Trustee Blair,
I would vote for 1 and 2, not 3, so I'm a no.
not 3. That's a no. Trustee Kagan,
Aye.
trustee Abbott,
Aye.
trustee Krusek.
aye.
We have a tie.
So Mayor Cunningham. can you repeat?
Aye.
Okay.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, everyone, very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Again, Superintendent Mercado, appreciate it very much.
Thanks for
and,
inviting me out.
Director Dubay and also President Gustus. Thank you very much for being here, along with all of the departments here at the village that have worked tremendously to help and go forward from here. Just keep working together and do excellent works in our community. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Next item B, resolution 2022-18 is a resolution to approve a waiver of zoning application and building permit fees for Woodridge School District 68. This is the minor site plan amendments, reference Jefferson Junior High track and field facility.
Going to ask for a motion, please, to approve resolution 2022-18.
So moved.
Thank you, trustee Page. And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, trustee Blair. Any discussion on this item? If our clerk would please call the roll.
Trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Blair,
Aye.
trustee Kagan,
Aye.
Trustee Abbott,
Aye.
trustee Krusek,
Aye.
trustee Page.
Aye.
Motion passes.
All right, next item C is resolution 2022-29. It's a resolution waiving the competitive bidding process and authorizing the village administrator to execute a purchase order to Dell Technologies for computer equipment and software. On the dais is a handout that reflects the not to exceed contract amount of $264,000, $281. The original amount of $362,262 in the original memo and resolution also included the costs of warranty and other additional hardware items. At the time publishing this memo on Friday, we did not have those ancillary costs. We now have those from Dell. And so the not to exceed number as reflected for this contract is $264,281.
Thank you very much. Going to ask for a motion to approve resolution 2022-29, please.
So moved.
Thank you, trustee Martinez, and a second.
Second.
Thank you, trustee Krusek. Any discussion on this item? Hearing none, if our clerk would please call the roll.
Trustee Blair,
Aye.
trustee Kagan,
Aye.
trustee Abbott,
Aye.
trustee Krusek,
Aye.
trustee Page.
Aye.
Trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next item, resolution 2022-30 is a resolution awarding bid 2022-05 for the purchase and installation of a steel service body and crane assembly on a public works vehicle. This is the Ford F-550. Contract is proposed to Sauber Manufacturing Company for Unit 328. Thank you.
Going to ask for a motion to approve resolution 2022-30, please.
So moved.
Thank you, trustee Page, and a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, trustee Abbott. Any discussion on this item? If our clerk would please call the roll.
Trustee Kagan,
Aye.
trustee Abbott,
Aye.
trustee Krusek,
Aye.
trustee Page.
Aye.
Trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Blair.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next item, resolution 2022-31. Resolution waiving the competitive bidding process and authorizing the expenditure of funding for parkway restoration. This is for the tornado impacted areas and general parkway tree replacements. This is our annual tree purchase and planting program.
Thank you very much. Going to ask for a motion to approve resolution 2022-31, please.
So moved.
Thank you, trustee Cruz. Second, a second.
Second.
Thank you, trustee Blair. Any discussion on this item? If our clerk would please call the roll.
Trustee Abbott,
Aye.
trustee Krusek,
Aye.
trustee Page.
Aye.
Trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Blair.
Aye.
Trustee Kagan.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Next item, next two items actually. But first item F, resolution 2022-32. It's a resolution authorizing the Village of Woodridge to approve an amendment, an addendum to the agreement for the design build services agreement with Harbor Construction. This is in relation to the new municipal facilities project on Janes Avenue for the police station and new public works storage facilities. By way of background here, we'll have a brief presentation for you tonight, but this item serves as really as the vehicle by which we will be bringing forward to you early trade package contract awards in advance of the final GMP contract. One area we know as staff, design build team of importance and concern from the board has been project schedule, right? And maintaining the integrity of that project schedule. And we certainly have been challenged to identify where we can in the schedule, accelerate it, and where it's reasonable to do so and stay on track with an aggressive schedule, but then also a spring groundbreaking. As part of that analysis, we also had to consider another intervening factor, and that involves the supply chain that is really a challenge globally, right, as we all know, and have probably been affected personally, and then we read about in the news quite frequently. So the challenge from the board to staff and to our design build team was pretty simple. How can we accelerate the schedule and break ground sooner? And what procurement strategies might we consider to better mitigate potential construction delays, either at the beginning or perhaps more importantly, downstream on the schedule, so that we can mitigate any potential stops in the progress of the construction once started. So our design build team, along with our owners' representatives, developed a strategy around these issuance of early trade packages, the results of which we'll present to you tonight. The first of which will be the last item this evening, item G, is the structural steel and precast panels to order those early. Those were subject to some supply chain volatility that our design build team identified early on that could present problems if we don't get in line and put our order in. So that's before you this evening. The next trade package to follow will be mass grading. That will be on April 7th. And then also the acceleration of our final engineering submittal and reviews that will allow for a mass grading permit issuance in early April so that we can seek to, weather permitting, commence earthworks around mid-April. Plan commission is scheduled for April 18th, and then we'll have village board contract approval on April 21st and zoning and entitlements to follow that. So I'm pleased to present here. We've got our design build team is here this evening. We've got Ryan Berry from Hardware Construction, Craig Meadows from Studio GC. They'll have just a brief overview. We've last presented to you, I think, in October formally. And so we'll give you an update. Also, and our owner's representative is here, Andy Joseph. And so if you would, Craig, we'll kick it off to you.
Good evening.
All good? Want to make sure everybody's seeing it. Okay, good. Okay, thank you. Yep, I'll move closer to it. Thank you. Again, my name is Craig Meadows. It's been a little while since we presented here from Studio GC. I'm the architect, project manager, and project principal for the project on the design half of the design build side. Today, we're going to give you an overall project update, talk about the status of the building itself for the police station and the other elements. Brian's going to give a schedule update and a pricing status. Overall, on a project update, we are complete with our construction documents and project. These drawings have been issued out to for bid, and bids are coming in and being evaluated as we speak. Additionally, we have been submitting to reviewing authorities. So community development and engineering set is going back, responding to comments today. Illinois Department of Corrections, we received approval on that today as well. So things are moving forward very, very quickly. Wanted to give you a little bit of an update on some of the things that had happened in the drawings, just so you can kind of see some changes. One of the things that have been fairly extensive in conversation is about the kind of tree preservation plan and landscape plan. We had not talked a lot about this in the past. This is existing trees overlaid on top of the current buildings. This is the new landscape plan associated with the project. So on the far left side is the detention basin area. You'll see, we'll talk a little bit more about that. Heavily landscape perimeter around the backside of the public works storage area, and then your required plantings around the parking lots and a fairly healthy number of trees, kind of providing the needed coverage in front of parking lots and buildings, etc. Back when we were here last time, we presented three views of the outside of the building. This is the one that was moving forward, that as it relates to the Memorial Plaza and then the elevations of the building. We also showed some of the Janes Avenue, but one of the things that have been developing over the past number of weeks is the monument sign that will be on Janes Avenue. That's a combination of an electronic sign as well as language that denotes police department and then village, currently calling it material storage yard. That may change as we get input back, but those signage elements are able to be switched out. We maintained a stylized version of the village logo on the side, and then we're specifically picking up elements like you might have recognized from the Memorial Plaza area, the kind of stacked stepping blocks. The kind of wood look is presented in numerous places through the building. So we're pulling things in from the building, so it makes the sign unique for the building, but brings in elements from the village like the logo to be able to kind of establish it as a part of the community as well. But eventually we have to take those drawings and we have to convert them into something that the contractors can bid. So as our design principal talked about the other day, we show everybody great pictures in 3D and then we dumb it down to 2D drawings that nobody can really understand and look at. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a description. So up on the top side is the east elevation, is probably the elevation that nobody's going to see very much. That's directly facing the future public works building in and of itself. On the right side, you will see the overhang for the public entrance, and you can see the little swoop up and then back down of the memorial area. On the left side is where, if I had put the parking, the squad cars in, that's the parking for the police. The garage door you see directly ahead is the entrance and the exit portion of the Sally Port. On the south bottom is the opposing, the north elevation, which primarily shows the main entrance to the building. The kind of cross-hatched or the lattice-looking area, that's a metal panel associated with the community room. And then various administrative functions that are denoted either between administration detectives. And then you see the long center spline that you may remember from some of the earlier presentations that allows light to be brought deep into the building to minimize the usage of electrical lighting. The south elevation is the flip side to that. So on the left side would be James Avenue. On the right side would be the Public Works building. You can see the canopy there, which is the long with about 5 or 6 columns in front of it. That is an alternate in the bid documents for police squad covered parking. And then the Sally Port on the left side with the 2 garage doors, which is actually exterior storage for some speed trailers, elements like that. The west elevation is actually the elevation that effectively faces Janes Avenue. One of the things that you will see that's a little bit different between this one and the renderings we showed, and the renderings are nice because they give you a good view of what it looks like in 3D. This is a little hectic looking. It cleans up a lot in the elevations, which is in the perspectives, which is good because that's how you're going to see it. We actually added a bit of a fence, picking up some of the fence line that we have, which is a decorative fence with wood look slats on it. To hide some of the more kind of pragmatic entrances into the mechanical room and electrical room and elements like that to give it a more prominent and appropriate facade. Moving into the interiors, while the exterior drawings are a little bit boring to look at, trust me, the interior drawings are a little bit even more boring. There's no fun colors in it. So we thought we'd bring to you today the main entrance into the space. This is just on the other side of the main vestibule as the public would see coming into the building. Those are the materials that were selected through the process and the intervening months of meeting with you guys. We've had a number of meetings with the police staff, village staff, and working through what these material selections are. Actually, the blue that you see on the main entrance is actually picking up a color from their historical uniforms, if I remember correctly, Chief. Yeah, so and ironically, it's called security blue. From Sherwin-Williams. So it's strangely appropriate. You'll see some elements like the wood on the ceiling is coming in directly from the canopy that's on the outside. So we're doing a lot of tricks to make people feel comfortable moving in and out of the space. The next room is the community room. We have worked out very, very well in this particular one. We've got some good carpet tile on the floor, primarily paint accents, though there are some areas of acoustical wall treatments to be able to keep sound under control. In the far back area is a series of cabinets that are actually house the AV equipment, but also provide a good space for the community to use for kind of buffet locations or providing input materials or whatever else might be needed for training. And then again, the wood look ceiling elements that kind of start tying everything together. So I took you through the fun and exciting pictures, and now I'm going to talk about the mechanical components of the building. So I have 2 elements I wanted to bring up today for that. The item on the left is an electrical diagram of the buildings. There's been a lot of discussion of ways of working and massaging the numbers to be able to see if we could get the entire building on the generator. The entire building is on the generator. There are panels that if there's issues with the generator, sometimes generators might not go up to full load or we need to bring in a temp one, that we can drop out non-critical elements of that. So it's a very flexible and malleable system to meet, but all the heating, ventilation, the geothermal system, everything else is on the generator as well. Yes, sir.
With regard to the generator, that's a natural gas generator.
That is a natural gas generator.
In the eventuality natural gas is disrupted, does the generator function?
The generator does not, but they can bring up, we're working on looking at a means of providing a tap box to allow another generator to be brought on site.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of philosophical discussions between natural gas and the diesel. Diesel can run out as well, so it's just a little bit of a challenge. Fair enough. Okay. Appreciate that. Okay. The element on the right is the geothermal diagrams for the outside of the building. I mentioned that the detention basin that's along James Avenue. Buried under that are they call them geothermal wells. They're really borings that tubing goes in and out of. So don't think of them as wells, even though that's a strange name for them. They don't actually connect to any groundwater. And then those various loops, there's 20 of them there that connect back to the building and circulate chilled or warm water, depending on the time of year, to offset and help assist on energy and heating and cooling in the building. If you'd like, I'm willing to stop and answer any questions on that component before Ryan gets up. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Ryan Barry with Harbor Contractors. Good to see everybody again. We wanted to update everybody on a few things, and I know that everybody's probably pretty anxious to understand what's going on with the timing and the schedule. So wanted to update everybody on that. And again, we can take any questions you may have if I don't answer any of your questions throughout. So what we have on here on the screen now is I extracted some of the key dates from our excuse me, current project schedule. I'll walk through those and explain what they are and the significance of them. So the first one is tonight, is the early award of the precast concrete and the structural steel trade packages. And as Al mentioned, these were identified earlier on in the process as some things that could potentially cause some delays further down the line once we get to construction due to the current lead times and the supply chain issues. So we went out early. We went out a little bit out of sequence as we typically would have, but I think it was to the benefit of the schedule. So next item is another very key date, and that's next Friday. That's when we will be submitting the GMP to the village for initial review. And as Al mentioned, on the 7th of April, we'll be back for consideration of the site work trade early award packages. And we did receive some favorable comments on our revised community development package yesterday. So we're confident that we'll make the Plan Commission hearing on the 18th of April. And then a couple of days after that, we'll be back to present the GMP for village approval. So May 5th, another key date for zoning and entitlement, the final approvals from the village board on that. And then lastly, I have the police facility substantial completion date listed in early September of next year. So getting into these dates a little bit more, I did provide a memo earlier on in March, which updated everybody a little bit on some of the dates and how some of the things have shifted and why over the course of the project thus far. And I'll recap that a little bit, and then I'd be glad to take any questions that anybody has. So between our current schedule today and our schedule from approximately about a year ago, back in April of last year, the notice to proceed date for construction has shifted about 9 weeks. However, our targeted start date remains on track. We've been trying to time the start of the site work with the time of the spring, of the start of the spring, excuse me. And right now we're on track to do that. So along the way, there have been some design elements that have taken a little bit more time than we anticipated. However, some of our procurement and permitting strategies have been adjusted to allow us to maintain on track for our spring site work start. So a couple of things we've done, like we mentioned, we've gone out ahead of the bulk of the packages with the site work trade packages. We'll be applying for a mass excavation permit early next week. And finally, and rather than going step by step with the engineering approvals and the community development approvals, we did do those somewhat concurrently. So as we mentioned, we did receive favorable feedback on our community development package. And then tomorrow we'll be submitting our final engineering plans for the village review based on the final comments from the last version. So one thing I do want to note is, we have improved slightly with our start date, even given some of the challenges we face. So the slide that I have here now, this is actually the slide that we talked about back in October of last year. So if you notice at the bottom right, at that time, we anticipated a site work start of April 29th. So with where we're at in the early awards, we're slightly ahead of that. So I thought it would be good to point that out. Now, as far as the construction side of the schedule goes, that was also addressed in the memo that was, let me back up here. That was also addressed in the memo that was issued earlier this month. So, and again, between our current schedule and the preliminary conceptual schedules, there's about a 13-week difference in duration for overall construction. So I did want to make a couple points to that so everybody understands the reasons behind that. So the first point I wanted to make was the schedule that I'm comparing to with the 13-week difference was one that was prepared prior to any design taking place. It was at the 60% design completion when we put a full detailed schedule together for construction. And this was done in conjunction with our last budget update for the 60% design development drawings. But more importantly, what that schedule in October included was, part of what we're seeing in the market today with supply chain issues and that type of thing. We spent a lot of time with the trade contractors at the time, not only getting a sense for the supply chain issues and the specific lead times for their products at the time, but also looking ahead as best we could. So point being is that the schedule that we produced was somewhat conservative. And finally, we are, as far as issuing the GMP next week, an updated schedule will be included with that as well. And again, that's one of the key things that we're doing is talking with the subcontractors about schedule considerations. And the difference now is we're doing so in somewhat of a competitive environment, whereas before we weren't. So we're hopeful that the schedule we produce next week will be more aggressive than the one that we have now. But like I said, we're in the process of doing that, updating that as we speak, and that'll be part of the submission next Friday. So any questions on schedule?
Any questions from any board members on the schedule or anything else up to this point?
Okay. Well, the next thing that I'm sure is on everybody's mind is the GMP, and as we've mentioned, that's something that's going to be submitted next Friday. So the pricing phase of that was completed earlier this month, March 4th. So what we've been doing since then is spending the time and going through with the trade contractors, reviewing the proposals to confirm the scope requirements, the schedule considerations, like I mentioned, best pricing available, as well as alternates. And like I mentioned, we're heavy into it now, and we're going to be finishing up that process next week. So I'm not necessarily in a position tonight to say, here's where we're at in comparison to the budget, because it is still somewhat fluid, but we're close. We're only about a week out from that. But that being said, I will say that we did see some trade contractor pricing coming high for some of the trades. And on the flip side of that, we saw some that came in low. But one of the things we did in October when we last updated the budget, in anticipation of some things like this, if we do run into some budget issues, we did collectively as a group come up with several alternates that were included with the proposal packages. So that just allows some flexibility if there needs to be. But again, with that as well, with the time we're spending with the trade contractors now, if they see a better way to do something on the documents, we're encouraging that. And whether that is a substitution of material or a piece of equipment, if there's something that doesn't impact design, doesn't impact level of quality or scope, we're very open, and we're in the process of reviewing several of those. So that again will provide some more flexibility if needed for consideration for the village. And those will be some things that will be included with our GMP submission next Friday. So the early awards, we've mentioned these already, and the early award for site work, as we mentioned, will be presented on April 7th. And that recommendation will be submitted to the village for review next week. So that one's coming up right around the corner. And more importantly, tonight, the precast and steel. So I wanted to just touch on a couple things with those two. And then I can open it up for any questions that anybody has. So I'll start with precast. We went out to we solicited proposals from eight precast contractors, and we received 3 proposals. So the company that we're recommending for award tonight is Architectural Precast. This is a company that we have worked with in the past. They are not one of the larger precast fabricators in the area, but I think for this job that it's a good fit, because a lot of the guys in the area are pretty tied up with some of these really big box warehouses that bogs down their production for a long, long time. But this job, they're not a huge company, but at the same time, this project is in terms of precast, is not a huge precast project. It's relatively small, so it's a good fit for that company. And like I said, we've worked with them in the past, so we do have some familiarity with them. So as far as the structural steel package is concerned, that one we went out to we solicited proposals from a total of 14 structural steel fabricators, and we received a total of 6. And just like the precast, the company we're recommending for award is Kingery Steel Fabricators. And again, they're a company that's been around a long time. We've done several projects with them, several municipal projects with them. So we have a high level of confidence that they'll be able to perform on this project. So I guess at this point, I'll open it up to any questions.
Any questions from any board members? Okay.
Madam Mayor,
Yes, please. Trustee Martinez.
I know this is going to be discussed in the next meeting, but site excavation. There was a discussion at the beginning of this project to possibly keep a portion of the dirt on site to save some dollars and maybe for future use by the Public Works Department.
Right.
Is that still under consideration, or is it out?
That is actually 3 of the alternates that were included in the proposal packages.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Anyone else, please? Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for the updates. We still have the resolution, so I'm going to ask for a motion to approve Resolution 2022-32, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Martinez. And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Blair. Any discussion on this item? If our clerk would please call the roll.
Trustee Krusek,
Aye.
trustee Page,
Aye.
trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Blair.
Aye.
Trustee Kagan. Trustee Abbott.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Last item this evening, Resolution 2022-33 is a resolution waiving the competitive bidding process and authorizing amendment number 1, an early bid award for precast concrete wall panels and structural steel with Harbor Construction. This is in the amount of $1,607,500.
I'm going to ask for a motion, please, to approve Resolution 2022-33.
So moved.
Trustee Abbott, thank you very much. And a second, please. Thank you, Trustee Krusek. Any discussion on this item? If our clerk would please call the roll.
Trustee Page,
Aye.
trustee Martinez.
Aye.
Trustee Blair.
Aye.
Trustee Kagan.
Aye.
Trustee Abbott.
Aye.
Trustee Krusek.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much. With no further agenda items or unfinished or new business to come before the board this evening, I'd like to just notify everyone that we do have a need this evening to convene an executive session immediately following our adjournment. The purpose of the executive session is to review and discuss the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees, specific individuals of the public body, collective negotiating matters between the public body and its employees or their representatives, or deliberations concerning salary schedules for one or more classes of employees. Going to ask for a motion, please, to adjourn our regular board meeting.
So moved.
Thank you, Trustee Krusek. And a second, please.
Second.
Thank you, Trustee Martinez. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? The motion carries. would like to thank everyone for being here this evening. Please do take good care, and please also stay connected to the Village of Woodridge. Have a great evening. We are adjourned and the time is 8:50 p.m.